Hello, welcome to the morning of day 3. I spent quite a bit of time the last several days reorganizing the notes for this course. I wanted to make everything much more user-friendly, and I wanted to put all of the most relevant training information up front. In particular because this course has attracted numerous people who don't have an extensive background in Buddhist training or meditative training in general, so I wanted to make the sort of flow of the information much more oriented towards this being very, very early days in terms of your training. That being said, it pretty rapidly scales so that it will accommodate people who have been at this a very long time. So we're back into the course notes here, and as you can see on the very left-hand side, or maybe you can't see very well, we pretty rapidly go from the introduction to sort of a general description of what calm abiding meditation is, to defining training in that, and then to doing the actual training. So I think this is a pretty straightforward flow. And then under actual training, which I'm going to cover today, there are a series of practical instructions and ways to expand the practice. So here we go. With regards to actual training in general, I think that a lot of people look at meditative training as something that you do on a cushion or something like that. You sit down, you do your practice, and then you walk away. And then tomorrow you sit down, you do your practice, and you walk away. And that somehow, eventually, this comes to do more in your life. Now, there is some truth to that. If you were doing a lot of sitting, if you had the capability to do very long sessions and they were quite productive sessions and all of that, that's true. But at the level of doing 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, it's not going to have very profound effects. So what is it that we're doing? Well, in the beginning, as we talked about in the last few days, you're just building up the habit of doing the training. That's the first thing. Then you're building that habit up. That's the second thing. You're building it up by having a few, 1 or 2, maybe 3, whatever, quality sessions during your day. Now, in the end, what is it that you're trying to do? Well, you've heard this term thrown around, realization, becoming a realized person and all this. What does this mean? If you went to the gym several times a week, if you ate right, if you did this for some period of time, you would become physically fit. And you wouldn't just be physically fit at the gym when you were lifting weights, you would be physically fit all the time. And that's a realization of fitness. It has become real in your experience. It's no longer a goal that you have, it's something that you are. Not that you possess, but you are that. When you walk around every day, you're fit 24/7. And as long as you don't allow that to degenerate, in the case of fitness, you will remain a fit person for many, many years, right? So in exactly the same way, if you want to train in meditation and be successful, you need to become meditative. So once we've established some training on the cushion, you need to slowly expand it out into other activities. And by slowly expanding it out, eventually the bar gets raised. As the bar gets raised, your capabilities increase on the cushion. As those increase, your capabilities in real life increase, and so forth, until you have mental fitness. Yes? And then this mental fitness is something that you carry around with you all the time, just like being fit in any other way. Generally supportive conditions. When you're just getting your practice going, it can be helpful to set up a space to do the practice. This means perhaps having an image of a Buddha, an image of bodhisattvas that you find particularly inspiring, either modern or historical, and a picture of your mentor in the practice. So if you're training in a Zen lineage, maybe a picture of your main teacher. If you're training in a Tibetan lineage, maybe a picture of your main teacher, and so on. You put your cushion in this area, and when you go to do your practice, you sit on that cushion, right? Pretty straightforward. Keep it neat and tidy. Try not to do other things there, in particular naughty things. Keep it sort of psychologically clean for yourself, in addition to physically clean. Second, I recommend this to everyone. My role is more of an older brother. You know, sometimes I say, oh, my students this, or I'm teaching that, or what have you. But in general, I see myself as more of an older brother figure. I'm not the parent in the family. So what I recommend is that people doing this course find a lineage of Chan, Zen, Tibetan Buddhism, Thai forest tradition, Tendai, Shingon, you name it. Whichever Buddhist tradition you relate with. And this course will help you absorb the maximum amount of information and apply it in a maximal way from a valid lineage. That's one way to generally support your practice, is to be part of a real lineage of practice. And then to use something like my course to supplement and get the most out of a more traditional lineage. That's the intention of this course. In terms of actually doing a particular training session, if you're doing it from a Buddhist perspective, then you want to take refuge at the start of the session, right? And taking refuge, you can read this on your own time, is just in general saying at the beginning of the session, saying and really feeling from your heart, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha until I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So this prayer includes refuge, safe direction. I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I see those as reliable sources of information for the process that I'm involved in. And I'm doing this until I attain enlightenment, not for my own sake, but for the sake of all other mother sentient beings, for everyone else's sake, in particular to remove their suffering, to gain the capability to be of maximum benefit to others and to help them remove their suffering, to enter a state of nirvana or to also attain a state of full awakening. So we can say a prayer like this 3 times at the beginning of a session, and that covers refuge, this prayer here, covers refuge and generating bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is a very long conversation, but I like to say also generating renunciation and bodhicitta, because you need renunciation to generate the bodhicitta in a legitimate way. So what is this bodhicitta mind? It has 2 components. One is the motivation to attain enlightenment. So there's a genuine aspect of this mind which wants to become omniscient, so that it knows absolutely everything that all sentient beings need, and that it has the capability to also know the fact of the matter about how reality and these beings exist. In other words, it knows the Dharma, it knows the truth. So not only does it know what's going on in sort of the diversity of all things, but it also knows the fact of the matter in terms of their ontological status, their truth, right? And then finally, it also has the ability to act. This is a state in which you have maximum ability to act and be of benefit to others. In particular, to emanate and to appear as all sorts of things in order to benefit others exactly according to their needs. Absolutely without any possibility of making a mistake in providing guidance to others. So the first element is you want to attain a state like that. The second element is Why? Why do you want to do that? Because you want to remove the suffering of all sentient beings. Not me. You're unconcerned with removing your own suffering in terms of this motivation. You want to remove the suffering of all other sentient beings. So this is bodhicitta. To generate bodhicitta first, as Shantideva says, I'm paraphrasing, but how could we wish that someone else have something that we haven't even wished for ourselves to have in our dreams? In order to have this wish to bring others to enlightenment, we need to have taken a lot of steps. We need to understand what enlightenment is. We need to be convinced that it's possible. We need to be convinced that it's a good idea, even if it is possible, right? And before that, we need to realize what exactly is the nature of our own suffering. And we have to really want from the depths of our heart, not just sort of lip service, but we have to really want from the bottom of our hearts to get out of that suffering, the suffering situation we find ourselves in. And that is renunciation. That is disenchantment. Those are synonymous terms. This doesn't mean you throw away the television. It means that you're no longer convinced that your satisfaction, the removal of your suffering, the attainment of a state of perfect satisfaction and a state sort of perfect for your needs, nirvana, can be attained by chasing around and rejecting the normal objects of the six senses. In other words, if I can just get the right ideas about stuff, I'll be fulfilled. If I can just get the right amount of money, I'll be fulfilled. If I can just stop being poor, I'll be fulfilled. If I can just get rich, if I can just get enough pleasure, if I can just get rid of enough pain, if I can just, as one of my teachers used to say, flip all the switches and turn all the dials on reality in exactly the right way, finally, I'll feel great all the time. It's a lie. When you realize that's a complete lie, and the only way to fix the situation you find yourself in is to transform your own mind in a permanent way, then you're on your way to renunciation. When you start to realize, there's actually absolutely nowhere in this cycle of rebirth that I'm stuck in that's characterized by suffering in all sorts of ways, where I'll be safe from suffering. So I don't want to be reborn again at all. Now you have real renunciation. I want to attain nirvana for my own sake. Not only mental peace, but also I just want to stop being reborn entirely. So this motivation is now renunciation. That is then transformed by introducing compassion. In particular, great compassion, mahakaruna. A compassion which looks at all other mother sentient beings and thinks, sort of like, imagine you're on a tropical vacation and it's perfect for you, absolutely everything that you love, or whatever kind of vacation you really love. And you look out over the ocean and a storm has rolled in, and your entire family, everyone you care about, everyone you love in the world, your pet cat, your dog, has gone overboard on a boat and they're drowning way out in the ocean. Can you just stand on the beach or wherever and continue sipping your nice drink and hang out? No, of course not. You have this immediate, I have to help them. I have to get them out of this. I have to do something so that they get free from this terrible situation. That then turns us away from remaining in a solitary state of peace, a solitary state of nirvana. And so we turn our motivation instead towards, well, what kind of capability do I need to rescue these people from the water out there? Well, I need a boat, and I need these tools, and I need those tools. I need a net. I need a couple life jackets. Yeah, I don't have any of that. So where do I go get it? Well, I need to become enlightened. I need to gain the capability to have all of the right tools in my toolkit to help all of these beings out there who are suffering. So this is conventional bodhicitta. Yeah? Now, that's a long, long thinking process. Conventional bodhicitta is generated through the process of going through training in Lamrim, training in the graded stages of the path to enlightenment. Lamrim, the stages of the path, very profound teaching that takes you from soup all the way to dessert. Soup to nuts, as they sometimes say, but people don't have nuts after meals anymore, so it doesn't make sense. In any case, so this process will take you through a whole series of different motivations, namely trying to get a better rebirth just for yourself, right? The last thing I want to do is end up in some terrible situation like as a cockroach, right? Okay, so you develop that motivation. And then you say, even if I'm reborn as a human, there's all these problems. Even if I'm reborn in the Deva realm, there's all these problems. So I don't want that either. I want to get out of this. Now you're aimed at nirvana. So this is the middle scope of motivation. And then you look at that and you go, I can't just sip a pina colada on the beach while my whole family's drowning in the ocean. I have to do something. Okay. I need to attain enlightenment in order to help all these beings and remove their suffering. Now there's bodhicitta. Now there's conventional bodhicitta. So at the beginning of any practice session, we take refuge and we generate the best sort of version of bodhicitta that we can. Next, you can also say the 7-limb prayer. So the 7-limb prayer is a very, very condensed practice in which you generate 7 different kinds of mind. And one of them is humility and respect by doing prostrations. There's a mind of generosity where you make actual material offerings and imagined offerings, as we did during the Mahayana vow ceremony, right? Where we did the mandala offering, for example, where you confess negative deeds and generate regret and resolve not to repeat those. You rejoice in the good actions performed by all beings, but in particular beings who are headed towards full awakening, and so on. You can read in the link there more details about this at your leisure. That can be a very good practice, and you can really condense that and have it as part of the beginning of the practice. Also, finally, you can if you've been in this course a while and you're also working on a particular rumination meditation where you're trying to generate an antidote over here to overcome this big problem that you have, right? You're generating this opposing mind. You can do this also at the beginning of a session. So you can try to read something, contemplate it, do the rumination, and then hold the conclusion so that you're actually generating the antidote, the opposite mind to your big problem. You can do that before your seated session, or you can do it after your seated session. Also, you can do the 9 rounds of breathing, right? So we took refuge, we generated bodhicitta, and we did the 7-limb prayer. That's all accomplished probably in about 90 seconds. Now we are doing the 9 rounds of breath, which will also take another 60 seconds or so, where you breathe in one nostril, breathe out the other, and so on in a particular pattern. And there's quite a bit of detail here. I actually saw some research on this recently, and when you breathe very vigorously through your nostrils, it actually changes the shape of your brain and tugs on some of the soft tissue at the back of the throat, and it changes the shape of the bottom of your brain where a lot of the hormone generating structures and things are. In any case, there's probably a neurological correlate for the reason why this works, in addition to the Tibetan model that has to do with the winds and the channels and all this. In any case, no matter which model you're thinking about, doing this breath practice is a good way to start a session because it changes the quality of your mind, and it lets you know which nostril is your dominant nostril for the session. Throughout the day, your body, your autonomic nervous system changes which nostril is your dominant nostril. So sometimes this one closes and you breathe out of this one only. And sometimes other periods of the day, you breathe out this one. Okay, so now we're into Pranayama Level 1. We covered that already. Physical art and discipline. In so many words, I want to cover everything in this session, right? So I have about 4 more minutes to do that, so I'm going to do kind of a lightning round. Physical discipline is your first major bridge to take your training off the cushion. You've generated some focus on the cushion, and now you're going to go do classical dance or ballroom dance or something, which requires that you maintain that awareness in a demanding circumstance, and that you have to develop your character also in the midst of a training activity like a physical discipline. Also, to start taking your practice off the cushion, you have a series of daily behaviors that you can use. The simplest one is standing, right? So there's a section in here now that deals with standing meditation and how to do that. Also, you will walk during your day. So there's a bridging activity where you're taking what you've accomplished on the cushion and you're applying it to walking in a very simple way so that you can apply it in between activities. So now you have sitting, you have during the day, if you happen to be standing, you can do that practice. If you happen to be walking, you can do walking practice. So now you have a lot of little bridges to extend the training that you're doing. Also, ritualized daily action. So you can take one small action like making coffee and structure it so that if you lose your focus on the activity of making the coffee, you go, you know what? I didn't put the water in there before I did this, or I didn't put the grounds in like this instead of like this, or however you decide to do it, right? So by ritualizing or formalizing or doing it the same every time, it gives you feedback on when you have lost your focus on what you're doing. So this is another way you can take some of what you've accomplished on the cushion and take it off the cushion. In brief, we covered the actual training. So this is the new organization for the notes. If you're going to extend your actual training off the cushion, just talk to me and we can customize this to your situation, because you don't want to do too many things and get overwhelmed. The key is just to do your little thing, get the first part of your practice consistent, and then start to slowly build things on as it's sort of organically feasible and makes sense. And that's something I can help you with as we talk things out personally or in the group. Easy ways to start expanding out your practice are doing a physical discipline like dance, yoga, martial arts, weightlifting, whatever appeals to you. Also, a great way to start expanding out your practice is to take basic kinesthetic type of movements that you will do throughout the day, like standing, and to create a way in which that standing becomes part of the training. So I introduced that, but you can go into much more detail on that in the notes. Also, we walk from point A to point B very often. And so if you can transform walking into yet another place where you're taking the activity of your training and doing that in a spontaneous situation, now your capability is going to grow. Then we discussed ritualizing or formalizing or structuring a couple daily activities. So if you make coffee every day, you figure out some way, I'm not talking about making it all flowery like you're doing samba or something. I'm talking about you put the water in first, and then you grind the beans, and then you put the beans in the thing, blah, 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 right? You just do it in the same order every time. And then you go get the spoon, and then, right? And so this gives you feedback. Oh no, did I lose my recollection? Did I lose my mindfulness? If you didn't do it in the same order that you always do, you lost your mindfulness. That's level 1 of bringing your training into your regular activity. Level 2 is to do it through the mind of just sitting, the mind of readiness, as one of my teachers called it. But that's an advanced practice. Okay, let's do our 5 minutes. May the precious Supreme Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that arisen not decline but increase more and more. May the precious supreme view of emptiness not yet born arise and grow, but increase more and more. See you this evening.